Ciao, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Today on Ciao Italia, due torte squisite. Mwah! Today I thought I would make some festive torte for you. Torta translates to cake or tarts. And we're going to start with something that's like a crostata. Now, a crostata in Italian is a jammed tart, like a two-layer tart that has a lattice crust. It's thick with jam, and the pastry crust is nice and firm. But I'm going to do a little variation on that today. So I'm going to start with making the dough. So in a bowl, you want 1.5 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. So folks, here's how you have to use your measuring cups. You see these? They're metal, and this is plastic. So these you can use to measure dry ingredients like sugar and flour. This is glass. And this is what you use to measure liquid ingredients. That's going to make all the difference as to how your dough or bread or whatever you're making is going to turn out. So just remember that. The plastic and stainless steel is for dry ingredients and glass is for liquid. So now that you know that, we have 1.5 cups of flour. I'm going to put just a little pinch of salt in there. Pinch of salt gives color and also taste to the dough. We have a teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 cup of sugar. That goes in. So now what I want to do is just whirl this around for a couple minutes, just to blend everything. I'll pulse it. Okay, that's good enough. So now what we have to do is add our fat to this. And for that we're using, of course, butter. Because what's better than butter in pastry, right? You have to have it. So I have a little way of doing the butter to incorporate it into the flour so that you really get an even distribution of the butter. And that is to start with your cheese grater. So you have a cheese grater, and on those large holes, you want to just grate your butter. So the butter is cold. That helps. If the butter is cold, of course, it won't get all mushy. So you want to grate it, and then when you put it in the processor, you only have to pulse it a couple times. So you want a stick of butter that you have grated. It also helps if you put your cheese grater in the refrigerator. Now the other way to do this is to just take the butter and cut it up into small chunks, put it into your food processor and pulse it that way, or you could use a fork with bits of butter in your flour. The idea is you want to coat the flour with the butter. So when you get down to the end, and believe me, I've worn Band-Aids on my fingers before grating butter, you just want to leave that little piece left. So there's our mound of butter. Got to get it all out. And now we're going to put that into the food processor. So a stick of butter goes in. Light and fluffy. Okay. And now we put our top back on. And we pulse that a couple times. You'll know when it's all incorporated by just watching. You don't want to just whirl this around. You want to really just do it gently until you can see that the butter has been really evenly distributed. And I'm just doing this very slowly. And that's enough. Okay, now we've got to add some liquid to this in order for us to get a dough. So wash my hands first. We want to add an egg to this. And here you have to gauge how moist the dough is going to be. So we have 1 egg. And again, the size of the egg is going to determine everything. So if the egg is small, you may need to add a little bit more liquid, like water. Or you could add some orange juice or lemon juice. We're just going to beat up this egg. This was a small egg, so I'll have to see. I may have to add some water. So you beat up the egg in a bowl, and then we want to add some flavoring. So here we have vanilla extract, 35% alcohol. You don't want vanilla flavoring. So you want about a teaspoon. I like vanilla, so I always add a little bit more. So don't buy vanilla flavoring, which is just imitation vanilla. You want vanilla extract that has 35% alcohol in it. All right, so now we're going to pour this over our mixture, put our top back on, and attempt to get a dough here. So again, we're going to pulse. And I'll know whether it's too dry, because once the dough starts to go around the blade, and you see how it's getting a little chunkier now. See that? I don't want to add liquid yet, so I'm still working the butter. O ye of little faith. Now, let's see. We want something that's going to hold between our hands, isn't too dry. And actually, that's just right. So we can take that out now. So I'm going to take that out into a bowl, because then we're going to do something very simple with this dough. So watch the blade if you're using a food processor. Take this and I'm going to put it right here. See how I could just crumble that into a ball? That was just enough liquid. And you'll get the hang of this as you make these types of doughs. Okay, so there it is. And now we just want to get it together, because we're going to do something with this. We're not even going to roll this out. What we're going to do is put this into a tart pan. So let me show you what we have. So here we have a 9-inch tart pan. It has a removable bottom. Some people are afraid that if they don't grease it, the tart isn't going to come out. But it really will, because you've got butter in here. You've got a stick of butter. So I want about 2/3 of this. And what you do is you play with this. You put it on your tart pan, and you can either flour your hands or just work it with your fingers, or put a piece of plastic wrap over the top. And you really want to press the dough evenly into the pan. You want to go up the sides of the pan as well. This is so easy, and you can use this dough for other recipes besides the one that I'm doing with a filling of dried prunes, by the way. So you'll see if you need more, you just take a little bit extra, pressing it into the grooves and up the sides, making sure that it's all pretty even all the way around. Now, this takes a little fussing to do. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I have friends that live in Emilia-Romagna, close to where they make the prized balsamic vinegar, aceto balsamico tradizionale di Modena. And one day I visited an acetaio where they make this prized vinegar. And it gave me inspiration to make this tart, although I wouldn't want to use that prized vinegar for this because it would be just too expensive. I'll show you how you can get a kind of a duplicate taste by doing something very simple with ordinary balsamic vinegar that you buy in the grocery store, which is not the same thing as the tradizionale. So once you have it in the pan like that, I want to make sure that you went up the side so that it's all even all the way around and it's all filled in those little grooves, so it all looks the same when you take it out of the oven. So that looks good. You could actually make this part the day before, put it in the refrigerator, and then you can just fill it and bake it the next day. All right. Okay, there it is. We've saved about 2/3. And that's going to go over the top. So now what we need to do with this is, our oven is on at 400 degrees, and we need to blind bake this. What that means is that we want to set this bottom dough up so that it's firm, because when we put the filling in, we don't want the crust to become soggy. So we have to bake this first just as it is. That's called blind baking. So our oven is on at 400 degrees, and we're going to put it in. And this is going to take, depending on your oven, maybe about 12 minutes or so, 15. You put it in, you put your timer on, and you let it go. And when it's ready, it will look like this. See? See how nice and hard that is now? And now that's ready for the filling. Now I have my dried prunes. They're really good for you, as we all know. So a box of prunes, you want about 2 9-ounce boxes. They usually sell them in 9-ounce dried prunes. And all I did was take the 2 boxes, which came to about 4 cups of prunes, and added about 2/3 of a cup of water in a saucepan, and I just cooked them just a bit until they just softened a little bit, because now I want to puree them. So they're all going to go in here in the food processor, and you really need a food processor for this, because this is going to be a really thick paste. So the prunes are in. That's 4 cups of cooked dried prunes, and we're going to just roll them up. Okay, you want this to be pasty. And I know what you're saying. That looks terrible, but actually it tastes delicious. So I'm going to take this pasty mixture out and put it in a bowl. And then I'm going to add some interesting flavoring to it. So as you can see, this is going to be a very thick tart, but most enjoyable. So put this over to the side. And now we want to add into this a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. So you mix in brown sugar. That just gives it an extra little sweetness. And when I served this to my friends in Reggio Emilia, they were quite surprised by this. And then we want the zest of 1 orange. So here's an orange. So the oils from this zest are really going to flavor this filling. And then what do you do with the rest of the orange? Well, then you save it for breakfast the next day. Okay, that looks good. That's about a good hefty tablespoon of orange zest. All right, so we mix this in now. Mix the orange zest in. You see how thick this is now. And now we're going to add that special ingredient that I was telling you about from the region of Emilia-Romagna, from Reggio and from Modena, and that would be not this, but I want to tell you about this. See this? This says aceto balsamico tradizionale. This is the real thing, and it is a condiment. It comes from that region. You buy a bottle like this, it's going to set you back a few pennies. Yes, it is. But that's not what we're using in this recipe. I would never do that, because this is something that you would use to drizzle on cooked meat or fish, or use with fruit, or drops of it go over Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. So that's a very prized condimento. It's not even called vinegar. When you go to the grocery store, you're buying this, right? It says balsamic vinegar. This is not this, not even close. I took a bottle of this vinegar. You want about 4 cups. You can buy balsamic vinegar in any grocery store. I put it in a pot, and I cooked it down until I had a 1/2 cup, and it looks like this. So let me show you. From just a liquid like that, see how thin that is? I got this. Look at how beautiful and syrupy that is. Look at how it coats the back of that spoon. And what has happened here is this vinegar has concentrated its sweetness. And so we add this, and I know what you're thinking, oh my God, all that vinegar? Yep, goes right in there. Look at how syrupy that is. And now you mix this with the filling until it's all well blended. And this is going to go into our cooled tart shell. Remember, we blind baked the shell, and you want to cool it before you put this filling in. So this just loosens this up as well as give it some more flavor. And now you can just imagine how dense this is going to be. When you eat this, you really only need a small wedge of this. It's nice with whipped cream or some seasoned with sugar mascarpone cheese or a little dollop of gelato. Okay, that looks good. Now we need our tart shell. So here it is, ready to go. And we just put this over the top. Looks like chocolate ice cream, doesn't it? And then you want to spread it around so that it's evenly distributed in your shell. Now you've reduced your oven temperature from 400 to 375 degrees, and you're going to bake this until this tart is set. It's going to take about 25 to 35 minutes depending on your oven. But before we do that, remember that remaining dough that I had left over? I took 2/3 for the shell, but I kept the rest for the top. And then you just take it. You don't even have to roll it out. You just sprinkle it over the top. It's a very rustic looking thing. But I'll tell you, everybody that I serve this to loves it because it's different, it's dense, and it's got the most unusual flavor. So the rest of the dough goes over the top. It's not exactly like the traditional crostate that you find in Italy with the lattice strips over the top, but it's a variation. Who says you can't have fun in the kitchen and do things that are a little bit different? A little coarse sugar over the top before it goes in the oven. Or you could put the coarse sugar on afterwards if you want to, but it adds just a nice little extra crunch. Coarse sugar you can find in the grocery store. So that pretties it up beautifully. Okay, all ready to go? And we're going to keep our eye on it. Oven's on, 375. I would say about 25 minutes or so, and then we'll check it. But while you're salivating about that, we need to make the Montovana. And it's a cake, and it comes from Tuscany, just northwest of Florence, from a city called Prato, the Montovana di Prato. However, it were nuns in the region of Lombardia who really brought this recipe to Tuscany. I'll tell you the story. But first of all, let me tell you how you're going to make the cake. So the cake starts in an 8.5-inch round cake pan, about 1.5 to 2 inches deep. I've buttered the pan. I have a piece of parchment paper in it. You can see that. Parchment paper that I've buttered. So that's going to make it easy to get the cake out. So you just do that and set it aside. So to make the cake, we need flour. So we have 1 1/4 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. Remember, you're using dry measures to do this. We want 1 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder. We want 1/4 teaspoon of sale, salt, go in. And we want 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So those are our dry ingredients. We just mix this around just to combine them. You could use a sifter if you wanted to do this and get it in a sifter, but it's not necessary. This is a really easy cake to make, and it's a perfect cake for afternoon tea. All right, so we've got the dry ingredients. Now we need wet ingredients. So we have 2 eggs. There's 1 and 2. So we're going to whisk those up a little bit. We want to beat these eggs up until they're fluffy and a little lighter color. And that happens when you beat air into eggs. And now I'm going to add a stick of melted butter. And get that all well blended. Okay. So now we're going to sit this aside for a minute because I want to get some lemon zest and lemon in there. So we want the zest of a lemon. So there is the lemon zest, and now we want the lemon. So now we have the lemon zest and we have the lemon juice, and now we're going to combine these two ingredients until we have a nice batter. And then we're going to add in some almonds. All right, so that looks good. So the biscottificio in prato is where you want to go. All right, so now we have almonds, and we want to add, about 2/3 of these to the batter. The rest we're going to put on the top. So we fold in the sliced almonds, just like that. This is such a simple cake, but a delicious one, and one with a history, which is even better. Okay, that looks good. And now we need our cake pan, already buttered. While you're doing all this, of course, you've got the oven on, 350 degrees. Spread the batter into the pan. This cake only needs a dusting of confectioner's sugar over the top. It's a very popular cake in Tuscany. It's actually a symbol of the city, that in the biscotti or the cantucci. So you spread it in the pan evenly. And then you take those remaining almonds and just sprinkle them over the top. You could toast the almonds a little bit first too if you wanted to. 350, your oven's on. This cake is going to take about 30-35 minutes, depending on your oven. When a little cake tester inserted in the center comes out clean, you know it's done. Give it a tap. It's all ready. In it goes. Timer's on. Let's get the tea ready. You're invited to tea, and we're starting with that torte di prune that we made, with the dried prunes that we rehydrated with a little bit of water, and then we combined with some sugar, some orange zest, and that balsamic vinegar that we reduced down to a syrup. And you can see how nice and dense and thick that is. So torte di prune is something you should try. And then I made this cake that has a little history, the Montovana di prato. Remember, that cake was made with eggs and flour and sugar, had almonds folded into the batter, and then almonds sprinkled over the top. It's a perfect tea cake. So there you have it. And until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Ciao. Whenever you start an Italian meal, you start with an antipasto. And if you don't know what that word means, it means to go before. And it really is setting you up for a great meal that's going to come after antipasto. Antipasto can be a variety of things. It can be cured meats. It can be loco salame. It could be grilled vegetables. And tonight here at Restaurant Pane e Vino, it's a timbalino, a little timbalo, a little molded affair of potatoes with some prosciutto, a little bit of cheese, tomato, and a nice cream sauce, kind of like alta cucina. So always start with an antipasto.